get going. Okay, great. Guys, can I just say, first of all, thank you so much for joining in today. It's only going to be a quick, about 30-minute session, just to go over some of the basics of how to use the iPad. If you've never met me before and not sure who I am, my name's Matt. I am an Apple Professional Learning Specialist. I also work at USW as a senior lecturer on the Initial Teacher Education course, as well as the education course, and have been using iPad for about 10 years now to support teaching and learning with students when I was still teaching in a secondary school in Bristol. I've always found it to be something which enables learners to do things in a way that possibly traditional methods haven't always supported. So that's my passion behind why I do these things, and hopefully over the course of some of the sessions that I've got planned, there'll be some things that are there to help you as well in terms of how you utilize technology in the classroom. So obviously today we're starting with getting more out of the iPad. We're just going to look at some really basic things that you can use that you might not have ever seen before. And then there's some various different courses over the next month, really, that please feel free to join in. Please feel free to shout out to colleagues or other students. I know some of our students are on the call as well today, to come and join us. I will share the information on how to join just before each chat, so that you can jump in when you're ready to. Okay, so let's get going with today's session. So today I'm going to be using just 3 applications: Notes, Safari and Keynote. All are free, all come pre-installed on an iPad. Now, one thing to just highlight at this point is I am on the latest operating system for the iPad. Things might look different depending on the devices you have, and some of the features might not work on the devices that you have. So it's really important for me to point that out at this point. It's to do with updating devices. I'll put my email address at the end. If anyone's got any questions following this, then please drop me an email. I will do my best to get back to people and offer advice where possible. So I hope that's okay with everyone. So like I said, we're going to be using Notes, Safari and Keynote in this session today. And we're going to jump straight in to having a look at how Notes works. So if you haven't already started using Notes, Notes is a really, really useful tool to help you get organized with the work that you're doing as an educator or as a student in university, depending on what your role is and how you've joined with us today. I'm just going to go over just some of the basics that you can do. And see what options there are available to you to help you with organizing yourself. So we're going to look through how we can just start making notes, how we can add tasks, how we can share those notes, which is really useful for obviously team planning, sharing notes if you know you've got notes on a book that you've read and you wanted to share that with a fellow student. Creating folders to help keep yourselves organized, grids and lines, which is an awesome tool for doing screen sharing to your board and having students be able to see, you know, a nice setup on the board, and helps the teacher use those grids and lines, and then also scanning documents. So I'm going to jump straight into the app on my device. It's the app along the bottom there with a yellow bar across the top. Looks like Notes, and this is a note that I've made for today. Making notes is really, really simple. I'm going to go through just the anatomy of what the page looks like to help you get started with making your own notes. Now, if you're on your iPad at the moment watching this, obviously it's going to be difficult for you to carry this out. This is why I'm recording it. If you've got an iPad handy, it can be useful to sort of play along with us whilst we do this as well. Okay, so this is what Notes looks like. I'm just going to go through all of the settings on the right-hand side. And I'm just going to start by starting a new note, which is the square in the top right corner with the pencil at the angle. When I've got this new page, I can now start to be creative in this page in various different ways. So I'm going to head to the bottom of the page at the moment and highlight the circle with the pen nib in it. Now this is a great tool. This is called Markup and sits in lots of different apps within the iPad. But what this allows me to do is, using a stylus or using my finger, I can actually start to just write directly on the page. So along the bottom, I've got my drawing tools. I have a pen. If I tap on the pen, I can change the thickness of the pen. As you can see, just gives me just different thicknesses that I can use depending on what I'm doing on the page. If I tap over on the side, I can change the color of those. And the color wheel there means I've got a lot of choice there in terms of what colors I might want to choose. So really, really quick access to a variety of tools that you can use in different colors. Next one along is a highlighter. So let's imagine I've got a piece of writing and I wanted to highlight it. If I tap on that highlighter, make it nice and thick, I'm going to change the opacity so it's a little bit easier for you to see through it. Highlighter pens obviously work because they're highlighting the text underneath. Now I've chosen that pen. You can see how I can highlight it, and it's obviously just going over exactly the same as you would with a highlighter pen. Next one along is a pencil, just gives you a different effect. Obviously it looks like a pencil on the page. And again, you can change the colors of each of these, you know, as you need to, and again, change the thickness. You can see how it just differs in terms of the tool that you're using. And then I have an eraser. So I can just obviously get rid of anything that I've made a mistake. Now this is really useful. I've used this with my son quite a bit because especially in times of tight budgets, being able to sketch out something as a thought and being able to just erase it without wasting paper or ink is actually a really, really good saver for the classroom as well. Obviously, you do have to have the iPads in the first place then. Next one along actually is an edit tool. So if I just again put some text on a page, if I tap on this, it's like a pencil with the lines across the top. It's a cut and paste tool, which means I can then move that object around on the page. And as educators, I'm sure you'll start to think about ways that you can use this as we look at different things that you can do within notes. One tool that is really, really useful though is having the ruler on the page. So if I add the ruler to my page and then choose the pen, if I draw now, oops, for some reason my hand's gone all over the place. I'm going to start that again. If I draw a line alongside the ruler, it gives me a nice straight line. If I change the ruler, you can see that it changes the angles as well. So I can use this to check the angles of things. And again, I'm going to look at how we can use this as a learning tool in the classroom. But basically what I get is a ruler on a page where I can look at different angles. And again, if I go back to drawing on it, it actually gives me a measurement of the length that I'm drawing. So here we've got 1003 millimeters. And that will just obviously instantly measure things for me. So again, from a teacher point of view, really, really handy in getting yourself set up with how you might use this displayed on your board for your students. So that's it in terms of the tools that you can use. Plenty of things in there that you can play around with. I'm sure you can start to think of how you might use them as an educator or as a student in lectures. For my students, I would always recommend using this as a way to just take notes in lectures. And we'll look at some of those things that we can do a little bit later on in terms of taking better notes. Okay, let's just close down that. So next thing we can do obviously is to add in text. So if I just go to a new space, I've got my notes here. I can just type in on my page. So that's a really, really handy way of obviously just making notes, and people will do that all the time, just note taking on anything. One thing to point out on an iPad, which is really, really helpful if you didn't know already existed, if I have my keyboard up along the bottom, oops, let me just come out and just go back into that again. There we go. To the left-hand side of my space bar is a little microphone. Now, what this enables me to do is dictate my notes. And this can be really, really helpful if you're just trying to get information down into a note in a really, really quick and easy way. Hello, how is everyone today? Question mark. And you'll see that that even gives you the ability to speak your punctuation as well, which is a really handy tool. Again, I found with my own son, where he struggles with identifying where punctuation needs to go. In having him speak his text through and having him actually say the punctuation, he can see on his screen where that punctuation goes and what the punctuation should look like. But again, as a time saver for educators, it's a really, really quick and easy way for you to add notes to a page. Now, we're doing this in Notes. That tool actually operates anywhere where you see the keyboard on your iPad. So from Safari to Pages documents, to Word documents. Anything that has the keyboard function means you can dictate your work into it. And when we look at workload and all of those things for teachers, that is such a time-saving tool for educators to use. So that's how we can use our voice to add notes as well. Next thing I'm going to look at, and I'm going to go back to this thing here. This was my notes on what we're going to go through today. And you'll see that I've got little tick boxes alongside all of the different activities. I'll show you how to make these in a second, but the reason that you have these is that I know that I've already gone through using markup. So I tick it and it drops it to the bottom of the list. So instantly now I can use this to just organize my own thoughts. I know that I'm going to go on to using lines and grids in a second, and creating tasks is what we're looking at the moment. So I can tick on that and I know what's left in order for me to do. And again, as educators, I'm sure there are a million things that you have to do, especially at the moment. And just being able to create a list and tick them off to know that you've done it is a really, really good thing for your well-being going forward. To think, you know I'm completing things, I know I'm on top of things. So let's just go in to have a look at how that works. I'm just going to jump back into one of those notes. And let's just say today I'm going to join a webinar. I'm going to tap on the tick, which is along the bottom next to the camera tool. On the bottom there's a little tick. If I tap on that, it just instantly makes that as a checkpoint. So I'm also going to eat today. I'm also going to exercise. I'm not actually committing myself to any of these things other than eating. And then I'm going to read a book. You get the idea. It's a very, very quick and simple way to just add in a list of things that you've done. And then again, if I tap on any of them, it's just going to put those into a completed order with the unticked ones going to the top, so that I know that that's something that I would need to do later on in the day. So again, really, really simple thing that you can use to organize yourself in your classrooms and at home. Okay, I'm going to jump back to our drawing page here. Now you can do all of this in one note, by the way. I'm jumping between notes just to kind of highlight the different things. Let's imagine I wanted to create something for my students to teach them something. Ordinarily, you would have your whiteboards in school, and that's great. There are some additional options that you can do by using an iPad to do this, and that is you end up almost replicating your interactive whiteboard to a certain extent. Now, this is hidden for some reason, so I'm not sure why it's not front and center, because it is a really, really useful tool. We're going to tap on the share icon, which is at the top, which is the square with the arrow pointing straight up. If I tap on that, these are all of the things that you can do to share the note that you've made. We'll look at that a little bit later. I'm actually going to scroll down to where it says lines and grids. And I'm going to tap on lines and grids. And you see it gives me a range of different grids that I can use in order to model things. Now, if we were doing something where I wanted the students or myself to look at handwriting and think about, keeping things on the line or where things might go under the line, etc., it's got that grid pattern for me. So the really, really simple thing. If I change that grid, let's have a look at how we might use this in a maths concept or science. Now I've got lines on my paper that helps me kind of put graphs together. I can model this quite easily to students, because this might be me modeling to them how I want them to create something in their books. And we could plot things on there. I'm just showing you a rough example. Again, you know how to use graph paper and those things. It's just really showing you that this is available on your screen on your iPad. And if you mirror this to the front of the board with all of the students, really, really simple way for you to have all of those things in one place. So grids and lines, absolutely essential kind of tool to have on your notes, which just makes clarity for the people that are looking at any of the notes that you're making, and can just help you organize things as well. You end up with that's unlimited, by the way. So the more you scroll down on your page, you end up, the whole page there has those grids and lines all embedded in it. Again, if you do have any questions, if I'm going too fast, please do just drop a message in the chat if you need me to go over anything again. I will try to keep a focus on the chat window as well as I'm going through things, but just conscious that I want to make sure this is as useful to everybody out there as possible. Okay, so we've looked through quite a few things already. we've looked through how we can use those lines and grids, how we can create tasks, how we use markup to a certain extent. The next thing we're going to look at is how we can, oops, my screen's just jumped off a second. There we go. How we can make some folders. So I'm going to jump back to my folder section. These are all the folders that I've created. Very, very simply, down the bottom, new folder. I'm just going to call it test. If I can type correctly, call it test. And tap on save. And now what I've created is a new folder over on the side here that I can start to organize. As I start a new note, that adds in as a new note on the side. If I create another note, you can see, it just continues to just keep building. Really, really useful tool there if you're creating notes on different subjects, etc., for your learners. So lots and lots of things that you can do to support them in their understanding of different things, documenting the learning that they're doing, sharing specific subject activities that you've done. But it just helps, again, organize all of your learning into one place. Okay, so very, very simple. A couple of last things to just look at then whilst we're in notes at the moment. The next one is how we can share notes. Now, this is really, really useful at the moment. Let's imagine that we're, collaborating on something, and I want to share some of my thoughts about an activity that I think we could do for remote learning. I'm, with my students, and I'm thinking about, some notes that they've made on a lecture that we've put on the internet for them, and they want to collaborate on something. Along the top, you have the plus icon with the little face or the little person inside. If I tap on there, I can tap on add people, and then it gives me the option to then choose how I want to invite those people. So I can send them an email. And then I can choose whether I want them to only view my notes, which can be quite useful if it's, I'm going to put all my notes in here for something and share it to lots of different people, or allow them to collaborate on that as well. So that's why I have the can make changes. So a really, really simple way to add people in and share your notes with them. And then the very last thing I'm going to show you is a really, really simple tool that enables you to be able to scan a document and keep it as a stored note. So I'm going to tap on the camera icon. You'll see that I've got different options in there. You can add in photos, etc. It's very obvious how you would do that. Photo library just goes to anything that's stored on my device. I'm going to go to scan documents. And if I just hover this over, I'm just going to use an iPad that I've got lying next to me at the moment. You'll see that the yellow grid is trying to pick up things that are in that picture. And if I come back far enough, it's collecting the whole of that shape. And then it strips out all of the other stuff around. And if I go to keep scan, you'll see that I just end up with that image. Now, if that was a piece of paper with a list of information on a page in a book, etc., it strips out all the mess in the background. It changes it to more of an easier view. So on paper, it gets rid of the shine, etc. And then that just adds that into my notes. So if I go to save, here goes my scanned document. And then again, if I tap on that scanned document, I also then get my markup tools. And if this was a page in a book, I could very easily, highlight bits that I want to talk about. There's all sorts of annotation tools that you can add into that. So really, really simple, quick way to collect notes, store them all in one place, and have them all in one note. So there we go. That's the basics of notes. Now, I'm going to move on slightly then to a couple of other features and go through these fairly quickly because they're really, really simple activities, but really, really useful. And the next one is how to use screenshots. And we're going to keep on this idea of what screenshots can do. Now, you might be used to just taking the screenshot on your device and just storing it as a picture. I'm actually going to go into some of the newer features of what screenshots can do. If I go into Safari here, I'm sure lots of you are familiar with this page, and I'm sure you've seen it all lots and lots. Now let's imagine that I'm reading through this and I want to make notes on this. So this is the simple way to do it. I'm just going to take a screenshot, and you'll see in the bottom corner I have that screenshot. If I tap on that screenshot, I can just annotate that page. If I tap on full page, I now have the option to scroll through the entire document that it's captured in one place. And hopefully you can already see there that all of those drawing tools that I've been using so far in Notes are open again. And then I have the option to highlight different sections, make additional notes if I want to. So then all of a sudden that then gets stored. When I tap on done, I have the option to save that PDF, and then that's going to save that to my device in a place where I'll be able to find it later. Now, we'll talk about how to set up your devices, etc. later, but you should all have the option to save it to your iPad and tap save, and that means I'll be able to find that again later. So a really, really quick and easy way to take notes based on what's on your screen. Now you can do exactly the same also in a presentation. So this is a great one that I share with my students. Here's my presentation. I'm going to take a screenshot of it. Again, I can go to full screen. Over on the right-hand side, you can see you have access to every single slide rather than just the shot that you've taken. And again, within this, I can start to highlight on here. You know, this is, go with the highlighter. This is a session that I'm going to take part in, and or whatever it might be, and your notes that might go alongside. You can just add them into it. And again, when you tap done, save that as a PDF. All of your notes, really, really simply taken. What I do in my lectures is I will try and share my keynote presentations at the start of a session to the students that have got an iPad, allowing them then to be able to take notes throughout the session, not having to take photos of the screen and all of those, but actually take notes directly on the presentation as they have them. So there we go. So that's screenshots. Now, the very last thing I want to share with you today is how you can utilize a split screen in order to support you with note-taking and research. So this is a really, really useful tool in order to support with that. Now, what I'm going to do is just pop out of Keynote into the whole screen view so you can see everything I'm doing. I'm going to slide up from the bottom. So that's now going to reveal the dock underneath. I'm going to tap and hold on another app and keep hold of it and drag it to the side of my screen, and you'll see the screen split in half. When I let go, I can now see both screens. I've got my Keynote on the left-hand side, and I've got Safari on the right. I'm going to just tap on the hub page so I can have a look at this. And now what's great here is I have access to all of that information alongside the presentation that I might be looking at. Now, let's imagine then that I want to make some notes on that website. I'm going to slide up from the bottom. I'm going to tap and hold on notes, do exactly the same, drag it up, drop that in the left-hand panel. And now I've got the website here, but I have the option to take notes here. So a really, really quick and easy thing. Now, if there's anything that I want to take in bulk, if I select all of that, tap and hold, you'll see that I've now kind of picked up that text. If I drop it over here on my note, I then have that text over here. So you can start to see how you really can take stuff from one app and move it into another app in a really, really quick and easy way. And this multitasking approach is really, really simple way to help just keep everything organized, make notes on research, reading, make notes on a lecture in a slightly different way. So a really, really simple thing you can do. Now, I'm just very conscious that because I'm using this webcasting software, and at the moment they give it free to a certain extent, we are running very, very close to our limit on our time. So I'm going to finish by just saying, if people have any questions, you can contact me at matt6453@gmail. And I would love to answer other people's questions and help as much as I can. I'll have to have a look again at the recording time on this because I'm really pushed for time unless I pay to have this, but at the moment I'm just trying to use the free features. So I hope that's been useful. It has been a bit quick. I have recorded it. I will send that out to people so that you can get hold of it. That's my email address. That's me on Twitter if you want to get in touch. Thank you so much for joining in. And I do apologize that we've been a little bit rushed towards the end. So thank you very much. And I hope to see you at one of the future sessions as we put them on. Thank you.